How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be talking about can a boy-girl friendship survive? It came out earlier this year in April and I recently watched it, and let's just talk a bit about it. Let's talk about the positives, the negatives, what it did right and what it did wrong. I'm going to be getting into spoilers right now, so definitely watch out for those. If you haven't seen it, if you want to see it, don't watch this video yet. Watch it after you see it, because I'm going to be breaking down a bit about what happened, some character dynamics, and what did I see with the show a bit more. Let's talk a bit about what the show is about before we actually break down what it did right and what it did wrong. The show is about, if you guessed it by the name, Can a Boy-Girl Friendship Survive is basically about a girl and guy best friendship that basically has to withstand this new test, which this new girl comes in, and now the guy is doubting whether or not he can still be best friends with this girl. At least that's what it kind of sets itself up to think that it's gonna be, but in reality it goes in a completely different path, which is what I want to talk about. And the first thing that I feel like the show doesn't do as right, I know that it's kind of a bit more nitpicky, because you have to have conflict and you have to have a bit more drama and you have to have a resolution at the end. So what happens in the show is, instead of them staying as a best friendship, they start to get feelings for each other. The two best friends, Himari and Yu, they start to get feelings for each other. By the way, the show's only in Japanese. You can watch it with subtitles, but there's no dubbing yet. What happens is Yu is kind of in love with Himari, but when Enochi comes in, he's starting to kind of doubt who he likes more. He's always found Himari to be a bit cute, but Enochi is his crush from when he was younger, and so they kind of have this tension and this threesome of Himari tends to be a bit more nonchalant, tries to play off her feelings as a joke, doesn't want to get too close, because if she gets too close then he's gonna push away. And then Enochi is going for this direct I like you. She basically proposes to him 5 times, hey, let's do something, and he if she proposes 5 times and they don't do anything, then that probably means that she gets rejected 5 times. They start to see each other as something more than best friends, and so I believe that the show kind of misleads with the guys saying that can a boy-girl friendship survive, but it evolves more than a boy-girl friendship, and then it evolves into a romance. Like I said, there will be spoilers, so I'm just gonna hit you with the cold water. The ending, what happens is Himari and Yu decide that they want to be together after a lot of conflict. Enochi's sister comes into play, and so she starts to try to pull strings, and this really makes you doubt whether or not his dream is to actually have a Flora's jewelry shop, or if he wants to date Himari. If he wants to date Himari, then he's gonna have to maybe give up that dream, or maybe have to postpone it. Why? Because this whole entire idea of romance is kind of messing with him and making it difficult for him to actually sustain his business. She's the main model and stuff like that, but once his products start to become defective, he realizes that it's either her or his dream, and they both share the same dream. So he wants to open up the shop and she wants to model for him in the shop, and that's basically how their friendship started since they were kids. So that is their dream, that is the status quo. And then what ends up happening is there's a lot of manipulation involved, and this is something that to me makes it a bit strange, but it also makes the show a bit quirkier, and it has its style. Yu's best friend, best male friend, he's a conniving son of a bitch who's in love with Enochi's older sister, which is the girl with the red hair. I don't really know her name. She shows up and adds more conflict, but doesn't do too much to she comes right after to add more conflict into it and add more stakes, which I still kind of don't understand the stakes. I don't understand why Himari is in the amount of debt that she is. I might have missed that in the first few episodes, but she's in a huge amount of debt. Enochi's sister can pay for it, but she gets into a competition with Yu if he can surprise her with like a great accessory, then he's meant to be making accessories, and he's meant to be making accessories with Himari. Turns out stuff goes wrong. He doesn't properly do stuff because, again, he's so taken aback by the romance. That's kind of like what happens in the show. It's a romance type of show where these two girls are fighting over the guy. They constantly put him in weird situations to fight for him. Then at the end, this is like where everything, like, it's so good, but it gets a bit weird when you find out the best friend is conniving to get Inochi to date him for some reason. He doesn't like clearly explain it. He's like trying to level the playing field. Like, she had so much time with him before, now you're gonna have that same time, and then see how things pop up. Then the sister comes in and she wants to take Himari out for some reason, and then Inochi, her entire plan, and at the end you kind of like, like there's only basically two protagonists, and it's Himari and Yu, and Inochi, like, she comes in as a secondary protagonist, but in the end, like the final scene, she's looking a bit more like an antagonist, and like Yu doesn't see any of these people as antagonists. What I mean by Inochi looking a bit like an antagonist is she then goes to like the train station where Himari is about to leave because, spoiler alert, Yu failed in the competition, and so she goes up and basically just tries to like strike this deal with Himari, like, hey, if you stay, you can have him, but when I come back from wherever you're supposed to be, then you have to give him to me, and if you don't do that, then like I'm just gonna continue doing what I'm doing to try to seduce him. And Himari like ends up rejecting the offer, basically saying like, no, I want to be with him, he's mine. And so it kind of like, yes, it's cute, but where does this come from to the point where, because it's so weird to explain without actually like being able to show the entire show. But so where it becomes weird is Inochi kind of like called off Yu's best friend. She's like, hey, you gotta stop whatever you're doing, and like stop whatever you're doing because I want to win on my own terms. And he's like, it sounds like you got a plan. And she's like, I got a plan that ain't gonna fail. And so she goes through with the plan, I guess, but she kind of failed, which is a bit weird. I don't know. Supposedly there isn't a season 2 yet. There isn't a season 2 confirmed yet. But since the show hasn't been dubbed, it is fairly popular, and it came out in April. Depending on the lifespan of the show and how well it does, it might get a second season and we might see more of it. If not, there are manga and there are different ways of seeing where the show ends up. Let's talk a bit more about what are some positives, because I feel like I talked a bit more about the negatives right now. Positives, characters. I know I say this a lot with like when it comes to anime and stuff like that, but you're not necessarily building a more difficult world. You're not doing a Your Lie in April, a Darling in the Franxx, or anything like that where you have to establish the world of music a bit more. You have to establish this post-apocalyptic world. You have to establish what is going on. This one doesn't rely on the world too much. It's in a, like, I don't even know if they name the city that they're in. They're not in Tokyo, and Tokyo is like mentioned, but wherever they are, it's a small town where their families own bakeries or convenience stores, and they live a simple life. So at the end of the day, you're not having to build up that world to say, hey, they have a simple life and he has this big dream in this small world. And so not having to build up that world, you have a lot more time with the characters. The show is very quick, and usually I would say that that's a negative, because having more time with the characters means that whenever the emotional moments are supposed to hit, they hit a lot better. However, since this show is 12 episodes long, those 12 episodes feel pretty quick. They go from one thing to the next, one thing to the next, and they rarely skip a beat. And what this helps do is keep the audience focused on what is at hand, the tension, the stakes, what these characters are having to go through to prove their love at the end of the day. So what ends up happening is we have this really continuous show that doesn't have to have any filler episodes, that doesn't have to have any filler content. Why? Because it's so limited. You have to develop the characters. Okay, we're developing their characters, their friendship, and what is the conflict in the first 3 episodes. So the show moves extremely quick. You could argue that it's like a 4-4-4, but I think it's a bit more like 3-3-3-2-1. Like at the end, it's like a 1 episode finale, and it really closes things off in a pretty good way. It has a satisfying ending where we feel like we earned the ending as an audience, whether or not you're rooting for Himari or Inochi, that's a completely different thing. I think that most of the concern, most of the general population is saying that Himari would have been the natural option because she's been with him through thick and thin. She always has her necklace with her, and despite all the issues that they go through during the show, she's still there for him. I also just want to talk real quickly about the ratings of the episodes. The ratings of the episodes are actually pretty consistent. However, there are 2 episodes that stand out the most to me, which is the 3rd to last episode and then the last episode. The reason why I believe that, this might just be me, personal bias. The reason why I believe that the 3rd to last episode is so much better is the cliffhanger at the end. How it ends off is so good. It is so compelling because that is the point of no return. What Himari has just done, which, spoiler alert, it is kissing you. Her kissing you is the point of no return. You are best friends. You do not kiss. I do not know any best friendship that kisses. So now you are going to a point where you have to either say, yes, we're gonna go full throttle at it, or no, and let's push back on it. What they do with it isn't as satisfying. So obviously this is a big character moment and something that doesn't really align with Himari's character as much, but why? Because she's talked to her brother about it, and her brother says, you need to get him like this, and you need to do the best thing you can is to try to get his attention like that somehow. Go out of your way to make sure that he knows that you're not kidding, because she usually gets him in a sexual situation, says something, and then once he's all nervous, she laughs about it. But she means it. And so in this case, there is no laughing about it. And she completely means it. And I feel like they missed the mark here. What I would have done, and this is just me now writing this episode for myself, what I would have done was the next episode, I would have started it right there, right after they kiss. What does that mean? The train ride back. Why are they on a train going somewhere? They need to go pick up a sunflower to make a tiara with it. It gets into the whole jeweler or accessory thing. So they go there, they go by themselves. She gets mad at him not really being responsive to her love, or not at least even rejecting it. He just kind of plays along with it and just keeps on acting normal. So she gets mad, runs away. Once he goes and finds her, she turns around and kisses him. Big character moment that I feel like it happens. We turn the page, we get to the next page, and then he's talking about it. It devolves into him having this mental dialogue, but then I don't feel like they as characters connect too much against it. Why? Because we didn't have that train ride back, that awkward train ride of, holy shit, I just kissed my best friend. Where do we go from this? I don't know. That's just the way that I would have done it, and I feel like that's why the rating of the episode that came after dropped significantly, because it didn't carry that emotional weight from the previous one. Obviously, it's a creative decision, and like I said, you have to move the story forward, and having a few minutes or half of an episode of then just coming back on the train, it's a great emotional moment, but you would have to have another episode to kind of highlight that emotion. So again, like I said, take it with a grain of salt, because that's what I would have done, and it's not what was done. So every creative mind works differently. Can a girl-boy friendship survive is definitely a good show. It has ranked in my top 10 of animes that I've seen. I'm gonna continue to be just talking about this ranking that I've done, not showing it really, because it's subjective and whatever I say doesn't really have to go, but it is a great show and I really recommend that people watch it because A, it's quick, B, it's good characters, and C, it's quippy, it's quick, the humor is funny, they get into these situations where, like, obviously they're not really that realistic, I hope, but it's a fun watch, and at the end of the day, I wasn't expecting it to be a serious watch, or like I wasn't expecting it to be like Blue Box. I was expecting it to be a lot more fun and a lot more these characters joking with each other, and it definitely delivered on them. Although there were some negatives, and like I said, I talked about most of them, what I thought about, like what I would have done differently. I still think that the show is great. So definitely go watch it if you haven't already. It's on Crunchyroll, has a 4.5 out of 5 on Crunchyroll. Definitely go watch it. I'll see you all in the next one. See ya.